Hey, wouldn't it be nice if you had a team that was in it for the long haul? But how would you define the long haul? Would it be 10 years, 20 years? How about 30 years? Does that even sound possible? It definitely is, especially with Jan Leasure of Monterey Bay Property Management. Her company has a great track record for not only employee retention, but also client retention and profitability. As a reminder, this podcast is brought to you by 4.5. Since 2012, we have been helping property managers grow their businesses through owner marketing. From websites, SEO, content, reputation, paid ads, you name it. Visit 4andhalf.com to learn more. That's FOURANDHALF.com. And now a quick word from today's sponsor.
Now is the time to add pest coverage to your resident benefit package. CoverPest seamlessly integrates with your existing benefit package to give your tenants a world-class pest control service at a fraction of the normal price. Visit coverpest.com today and mention this podcast to get your startup fee waived.
Jan, I'm so excited because you have been a listener of the Property Management Show for a while now, and today is special because you're actually our guest speaker. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
And so you actually caught our attention because our theme for this season of the podcast is something that companies are doing that's so good. Oh, Brittany's cat.
Aria's joining the. This is Aria Stark, and she has decided to join.
We have two special guests today.
And knock stuff off my desk, so we'll see how this goes. I'll mute myself until she departs.
And so Jan, again, welcome to our show. And one of the things that we wanted to tease out of you today is your absolutely amazing employee retention rate. So you told us in a previous conversation, you have employees who've been with the company for 10, 20 years. So what
more
is your,
or
even more than that. And so what is your
30?
30? That's amazing. So you basically have employees that just refuse to leave. And so what is your secret?
Well, we're not trying to get them to leave, certainly, but I'm really happy that they're here all this time. But I do think there are a couple of things that we have done that enhance our employee retention. And I think one of those things is choosing the right person the first time, hiring right at the beginning. And I don't think that necessarily happens on sites like ZipRecruiter and Indeed. And I mean, you might find some great people there, but I have had not very good luck with that type of hiring. And I've had amazing good luck hiring people who are known to me in some other capacity. They are people that I've known who have the qualities that I'm looking for, the personality traits, and I just think that they fit our company culture. So a lot of times I'll hire that way. And I mean, I have turned lots of odd sounding professions, not that the professions are odd, but odd related to property management, into property managers. I have a former golf pro on my staff. I have a former nail salon owner. I have a former restaurateur. Let's see. There are, I have a former physical therapist. So, there's lots of things that, don't seem to make any sense, but they fit our company culture and they've been highly successful. So I think choosing the right person at the beginning is a great way to start. And sometimes that person might even come from a referral from someone that I know and trust and that I know understands our company culture. So that's been highly successful. The other thing that I have done over the years that has been very successful for me is that when I do come across the right person, I make a job for them, whether we have an opening or not. And so that has worked well and served me well, because even though it's a little bit expensive to do that, that means that when we grew quickly or lost somebody to retirement, let's say, or some other reason that they had to leave the area, we were able to slide these people right in. They knew what to do already, and there was never a point where we had a job opening. And in fact, I can't even remember the last time when we had an opening. Lots of times people call us and say, do you have any openings? The answer is always no.
That's great too. So it's almost like you're investing in your team before you have the work, knowing that you're going to get it at some point, giving you the opportunity. Yeah, I really like that. Now, what about, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'm a little frazzled since my cat attacked me and my mic is all. You go first.
Yeah. And so just to follow up on that statement of, you find the right person, even if you don't have a quote unquote opening right then and there, you made a good job for them. Can you give an example of what kind of placeholder jobs you create just so you can get the right people, knowing that not so far down the line, you'll have a permanent place for them?
I think there's always wisdom in starting new people at the front desk. Practically everybody that came into the company started at the front desk. And I think the reason that works well is because they are on the firing line from the very beginning. And we teach them to answer the phone, find out what the person on the other end of the phone needs, and then say, do you mind holding just a moment while I find the right person to help you with that? And so even if it's the person's first day on the job, they can turn around and say, this person needs whatever. And then there's somebody here to help them. So they learn how the wheels turn in the company by doing that.
That's really awesome. So it's kind of like, not like trial by fire, but almost like you throw them in the deep end. But it's also, a lot of people learn by doing. So you could give them a procedure manual or a checklist or whatever that they can refer to. But just by listening to the question, putting them on hold, reiterating the question and hearing the answer, and then reiterating the answer, it's almost like solidifying that information in your mind a little bit further.
Yes, exactly right. And, most companies, I think, can identify what questions are going to be on the other end of the phone line 90% of the time. So we give the new people who come in a list of those questions and answers right off the bat so that they're a little bit prepared.
Yeah, and that's probably good too, because since they're repetitive, they get familiar with it much faster.
Exactly.
So you're not hiring these pro golfers and finding a golf type job for them in the company.
Right. Yeah, mostly the things that they do don't have anything to do with what they did before.
Right.
So how do you identify the right person? So you mentioned how important it is to get it right the first time. It's kind of like marriage, right? Like, how do you say married for centuries and centuries, decades? We'll find the right person the first time. And so do you have key criteria that you check off in your head when you're interviewing someone? Or I believe at one time you identify the right person in the form of wait staff at a restaurant you frequent, right? So what are the things you consider?
Well, in that particular case, for example, that person had a sparkling personality and was always on an even keel. No matter when I went in that restaurant, and I went very frequently, her temperament was always the same. And that's something that we need in property management. We have to be unflappable in property management. So, and the same in the restaurant business. So lots of, customer service skills that are much the same.
And so how do you approach someone who's not even looking to
Oh,
work for a property management company?
in that particular case, one day when she was waiting on me, I asked her, I engaged her in the conversation about how long she'd been there and how long she was doing that. And I asked her if she'd ever thought about doing anything else. And so she said, well, like what? And so I said, well, like maybe property management. And of course, when you say that, everybody thinks, oh, really? What does that mean? They don't have any idea really what that involves, but it starts the conversation. And so we did have several other conversations following up after that that were out of the restaurant and away from the table. And yeah, so here we are, happily ever after.
Do you interview them after somewhere? I mean, Marie mentioned interviewing, but do you have a formal interview process after you approach them? I mean, you mentioned having conversations. Is an interview part of that?
Yes. I would say that you would call it an interview. It's probably a little different than a typical interview, with the typical interview questions. But I want to know how they will work again, within our company culture. I like to talk to them about, what their problem solving skills are. I like them to tell me about some times when they, were challenged in their job, whatever the job is. For the golf pro, it's, was it somebody who was frustrated with his game and did some damage to something on the course or, whatever.
So once you get over that step of, okay, you've had the conversation, you've interviewed them, and then they're starting out. It's one thing for you to determine that they're a great fit for your team. It's another for them to also feel that, hey, I can see myself staying here for 30 plus years, right? So what do you do to get them to feel that like they're in the right place, that it's something that they want to do long term? You mentioned in a previous conversation understanding what each individual needs. Can you talk more about that?
Yes. In my previous life, before I was a real estate broker and a property manager, I was a teacher. And one of the skills that teachers have is evaluating students based on their individual skills and abilities and meeting their individual needs. So I pretty much transferred those skills to this job. And after the person has been here for a little while, I'm always asking them, how do you like this? What do you like about it? Do you like this better or do you like that better, or what appeals to you? I clearly recall one particular situation where I thought that a person I had brought in would make a great reservation agent in my vacation rental operation. And she had no intention of doing that and no interest in that at all. But she's still with me today. She's my bookkeeper.
So how do you have a process? Like you have this conversation with each team member every 6 months, every year? Are there just milestones like every 2 years that you've been with the company, you do this sanity check?
I think it depends on the individual. Again, back to those individual needs. Some people are just fine, without a check-in for quite a stretch. Other people need to check in more frequently. So it depends on the individual. And, I'm always watching and listening to see what their individual needs are. If they're seem to be dissatisfied about some aspect of their job, what is that? And if I can keep my finger on the pulse of what part of the job they're enjoying and what part they're not enjoying, we can restructure things a little bit to make it better for them.
And I
Do you
believe
have any examples? Oh, I was just going to say, do you have any examples of how you've restructured things?
Well, yes. In the case of the bookkeeper, for example, actually more than just the bookkeeper, there have been several people who had children while they were here. And so, for example, when somebody has a baby, whether it's a man or a woman, they have different needs all of a sudden. Mm-hmm. And so we've had situations where we structure the situation so that they can work from home more, or they can, when the baby is really small, they can bring the baby to work and things like that. So that would be an example.
Thank you.
Yeah. I was just gonna ask, or say, I believe in the previous conversation, you also talked about compensation and that you feel like you compensate your employees higher than most property management companies. In fact,
I do.
yeah, in fact, you said that Profit Coach even thought so too, that
Yes.
you overcompensate your people money-wise.
Yes.
So can you talk more about that and how you balance that with profitability?
Yes. I do think that I probably compensate my employees probably some of the highest compensation in the country for what they do. And that's okay because, again, I trade longevity for compensation. But, I mean, it's just a math problem. So, we have to work out the math. If I'm spending money on compensation for employees, then I can't spend it other places. But we are a very profitable company. And so it's a balancing act. But interestingly enough, I will tell you that when I knew I was going to do this, I asked one of my employees to tell me what it is they valued the most. And surprisingly, the answer wasn't compensation. Surprisingly, the answer was flexibility. And so I was surprised. Well, I wasn't really surprised because that's one of the hallmarks, I think, of being employed here is that we do offer flexibility. But for the most part, everybody works when they want to work, the hours they want to work. They work from home or they work here at the office as much as they want. I don't think I've ever said no to any request for any time off. And interestingly enough, I don't think they take enough time off. I think they could probably take more and it would be a healthier situation for them. I wish they'd take more, but whatever time off they need, we make it work, whatever it is. So I think the flexibility is important to them. I think that the compensation is important, but I think also the fact that we treat people like family. I actually do have some family working here, so everybody gets treated like family. And I think they know that I value their opinions. I ask them for their opinions a lot. And gosh, I've loaned them money when they needed it. I've helped them buy cars and houses. And so I think they like it here.
Yeah, it seems like you're really just there for them and trying to give them whatever they need, which in my opinion is a sign just of a really good business owner, but also just management in general. It's like when you give them a little bit, they give back a lot. And there's a saying for it, but
I think that's right. And I think that I do try to give them what they need, because certainly they are willing to give back to me and to the company. They have tremendous loyalty, and I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah. How does that translate into owner retention?
We retain our owners. I think it does translate. I think the whole philosophy of the business and the company culture does transcend into owner relations. And we don't typically lose owners because they're looking for a better deal somewhere or because they're dissatisfied with our service. Owners leave our management because they sell their properties or because they move into their houses themselves. But they don't leave because of dissatisfaction.
And I remember you mentioned the idea of outrageous service or outrageous customer service that each person in your team kind of lives by. And it's almost like a game,
Yes.
right? Can you share with our audience members a bit more about what that is exactly?
Yeah. So years ago, there were some books written by an author named T. Scott Gross. And the books are surrounding the idea of providing positively outrageous service. And the idea is that you go the extra mile to do the unexpected and to provide great service as a result. And somebody asked, I was on a group chat the other day, and somebody asked for an example of how we provided positively outrageous service. And this particular example had to do with a tenant, but I'll give you the example. It was Thanksgiving, and the tenant's oven was not working, and the tenant was trying to prepare Thanksgiving dinner. And so we sent we actually had a repairman available on Thanksgiving Day, and we sent him to tell us what was wrong with the oven, and he did diagnose the problem. But he said, Jan, I can't get the part until Monday because the parts house is closed. And he said, this oven needs a part, it's not going to work. And so I went and got the tenant's turkey and took it to my house and cooked it for them. So I think that's an example of positively outrageous service. And I don't know how many years ago that was, but I'm sure that story is still getting told somewhere. And people don't forget those things. It's kind of interesting in this, and that was years ago. But in this day and age, I think that somebody asked me the other day, what kinds of things we do for our owners. And I thought about that, and I said, the owners like it because I answer my phone. And I really don't think answering the phone is such an outrageous gesture of customer service, but apparently it is to some people. So I do answer my phone, and my owners like that.
Do you find anyone abusing the privilege of having a direct contact to you?
If I do, I know how to sort of circumvent that and get them to the person who can most help them, or get them to somebody else. Or if I can't, if I just don't have the time right that second, I know how to gently put them off until a time when I can be more attentive to them. But everybody pretty much, they have my phone number, and my phone number is all over the internet. Anybody who wanted to call me can call me, so it's fine.
Yeah.
One other thing that I do for my owners that they particularly like is that I write them a newsletter every month, and it comes with their statement. And it's not a fancy newsletter. It's not formatted in a newsletter format or anything. It's just an email that goes with the statement that tells them what's going on in the marketplace and what I see happening. I'm an investor myself, so I write it mostly from the investor's standpoint. And I think that even though they could just hit reply and reply back to me, not very many of them do, but they still feel like they've had a conversation with me because I write that email.
Well, it might even seem a little bit more personal since it's not in a flashy newsletter format.
Yes. I think it absolutely does.
That's cool. Going back to kind of in the realm of employees and profitability again. When we spoke to you last time, you mentioned that you've actually helped establish businesses or property management businesses with some of your other employees. Given you're in such a small community, how are you able to do that without cannibalizing your own profits, I guess?
Yes. Well, and so, what you're referring to is the fact that I have trained, well, let's see, my restaurant person and my nail salon technician, and let's see, the third one was a real estate salesperson, all started their own businesses, and I helped them do that. And I did cannibalize my own portfolio in order to do that, because of course, somebody who works for another broker can't just go out and start a property management business from scratch. I mean, they'll starve to death. So I did actually lease them the accounts, and which meant that they had a little fee coming back to me. But they took on the management and eventually were able to start their own businesses on their own. And I love that. And you're right, this is a small area, but there's enough business out there for everybody, and it's fine.
I love that mindset. How did that come about? Was it your idea, or did one of your employees say, hey, I'm kind of thinking I want to do this, and you thought it was an excellent idea and you came up with the lease back, or what does that look like?
Well, it kind of was my idea from the standpoint that they are younger than I am, and I'm not going to do this forever. So I felt like I needed to sort of train the next generation. I, feel kind of great that the next people up to the plate have been trained by me. So, and I actually have 2 more that I'm working on right now. So they'll eventually be 5.
Yeah. Well, and especially since it sounds like you have such good relationships with your property owners, it would be a shame to sell the portfolio to somebody you don't know and completely change their experience. So now it's kind of like,
It was
you're
a
not worried
very
about
easy
it.
transition. We work on a portfolio management system here anyway. So I was able to
Okay.
simply say to the owners, okay, your manager is now going to start his or her own business, and I'm going to be right there in the background, as a cheerleader for everybody. And if there's a problem, I'll be there. And I don't think there was a single owner who said, no, I don't want to do that.
Do you think that this strategy also helps support employee retention because the other employees in the company are seeing you help nurture um, businesses for the other team members?
I think they see it as part and parcel of the whole nurturing situation that exists here as part of our company culture. They know that I am here for them, whatever they need. And so, if it's starting a business, if it's, I don't know what, getting married or whatever it is, buying a house or, whatever it is, I'm going to be there for them, and they can ask me for help if they need it.
That's amazing.
And employee loyalty is definitely something that some businesses can only aspire for.
Well, I've been very fortunate that as I have helped the property managers start their own businesses, that tremendous loyalty has remained. There have been a few instances where we become acutely aware that a prospective owner is interviewing more than one of us. And so I have heard I've heard my former employees say to a prospect that Jan trained me. She taught me everything I know. And I am very willing to say to a prospect, no matter who you choose, if you choose me to manage your property, or you choose one of these others that I have trained, you won't be wrong. So it'll all be fine.
It's so interesting because in one sense, it's a different way of thinking about grabbing market share, right? It's like, to you, because these other companies kind of sprung out from your main company, you still consider it kind of, it's the same. Like, you can't go wrong choosing either management from my company or the companies that are started off through my former employees. And it's like, you get, in that way, you're able to get full market share, basically, rather than, you try to hamper the dreams of employees who maybe have dreams of starting your own businesses, right? So then, even if you support them or not, they're probably going to do it anyway. So why not support them,
Why not?
right? And
Yeah.
continue
Why not?
being,
Exactly.
friends.
Yeah. I think it is just a question of how fulfilled do you want to be? And I am so fulfilled by this way of doing business. I think that some people grow for growth's sake. Some people grow their businesses just because they want to see how big they can get. That's just not me. I grow so that I can help other people do great things. And again, I'm not going to do this forever. So there's got to be some people that do it after I get done.
Yeah, I feel like that goes back to the whole idea of just in property management. So often there's this mentality of grow doors, grow profits. But with you, it's kind of like that's all fine and dandy. That's great. But why am I here? Why do I want to do this? It's not just about that. And I think it's just a really good message to send to people that there's not one way to do things, or there's not one goal that every single property management company or business owner is trying to achieve.
Absolutely true. And, my way is not for everybody. I mean, my way is not for the people who are trying to grow as many doors as they can and to be as big as they can and make as much money as they can. I think for me, it has always been important to know how much is enough. And I have been at that place of having enough for a very long time. And so because I have been at the place where enough is enough, then it allows me to live the quality of life I want and to facilitate other people doing the same thing.
And I can just tell from talking to you that you're just happy. And I believe a lot of that has to do with knowing when and how to be content. I believe there are individuals that kind of lose track of what makes them happy, and this pursuit of, like, this endless pursuit of, I just want to keep growing because what else am I supposed to do, sometimes could end up becoming the source of unhappiness, because you're never content. It's like, okay, I got full market share of my town, but then there's always another town, and then there's always another state. And, like, if you lose sight of when is enough, then you end up getting burnt out and, just being unhappy.
Well, and I think you have to ask yourself, what is my reason for existing here in the property management space? Is it just to grow doors? And, it's kind of like when we were 15, we couldn't wait to be 16 so we could drive the car. And when we were 18, we couldn't wait to be 21 so we could drink in a bar. And, it just goes on, and you have to just sort of ask yourself, well, am I going to live my whole life waiting for the next milestone, or can I just be happy and be rewarded intrinsically with what I have? And Yeah, you're right. I'm a happy person.
Well, thank you so much for all the wonderful advice and wisdom and the really interesting stories that you shared with us today. Thank
You're
you for
very
being on
welcome.
the show.
Thank you.
And that's all we have for today's episode of the Property Management Show, brought to you by 4.5. Since 2012, we have been helping property managers get more owner leads through marketing. From websites, SEO, content, reputation, paid ads, you name it, we do it. Visit 4andhalf.com to learn more. That's FOURANDHALF.com. As usual, feel free to send us your feedback, comments, thoughts by emailing marketing@4andhalf.com. And if you are enjoying our show, please consider leaving us a rating or review on the listening app of your choice. Thank you and see you next time.